Our world is a place of infinite majesty and endless mystery. We have yet to fully comprehend everything within this beautiful world that we share with so many curious creatures. From the elegance of the coral highlands to the majesty of the Elder's Recess. But to this researcher, no location in the New World is as unique or as hauntingly beautiful as the Rotten Vale. Let's take a step back. Our Hunters Guild is dedicated to preserving the balance of nature. To that end, we do not simply eradicate monsters, we study them. It is why Guild leadership often awards extra materials for capturing a monster alive. We can learn more from a living specimen than we can from a corpse after all, and the living specimen can be tagged and released in an ecosystem where it will be beneficial. One taxon of monsters, however, cannot be captured alive: Elder Dragons. We know very little about these mysterious and elusive creatures. Elder dragons are not uniformly defined by morphology, shape. While many people casually associate elder dragons with the traditional hexapod body type, 4 limbs and 2 wings, this is not a universal trait among elder dragons. Kirin, for example, lacks wings. Yamatsukami, Amatsumakatsuchi, Darenmoran, Genmoran, Sideus. Many elders defy this hexapod morphology. What classifies an elder is its ability to affect its environment in ways we cannot understand or explain. When a Zinogre uses lightning, that is due to the unique insects that live in its horns and fur, the fulgur bugs. When a Kirin conjures lightning, it calls lightning strikes from the storm clouds that manifest in its presence, and it can call repeat strikes exactly where it wants them, defying the very laws of physics. Our journey as a species to the New World began when the Hunters Guild noticed an alarming trend. The Elder Crossing was occurring more frequently. The Elder Crossing is a phenomenon that has been observed where many elder dragons cross the sea, seemingly to nowhere. Concerned, the Guild formed the Research Commission and dispatched hunters and ecologists to follow the Elder Crossing, and what was discovered was astonishing. A new continent, dubbed the New World, full of monsters and hitherto unseen biomes. The Research Commission set up the base Astera, built out of the ships that had sailed to the New World. The Fifth Fleet, the most recent expedition, was the one to uncover the truth of the Elder Crossing. The Elder Crossing was not some plot by the Elder Dragons. It was not a whim, but rather a biological calling. When an Elder Dragon senses its time is near, it crosses the sea to head to the New World. Or, to be more specific, it heads to the Rotten Vale, where it passes away. The Rotten Vale is, in effect, a natural graveyard for monsters. The entire vale is comprised of countless monster corpses, and most prominent are the 2 adult Delamador. The Delamador the Valhabar hunter fought at Speartip Crag was a juvenile. Even as a young specimen, it was 440 meters in length. The 2 Delamador corpses in the Rotten Vale are speculated to be 60 meters in diameter and over a mile long. The Rotten Vale, therefore, is a place of rot. The entirety of the vale is composed of bone, decomposing monster corpses, acid lakes, and a unique bacteria called effluvium. The effluvium accelerates decay, allowing the vale to remain the unique location that it is. Our limited human sensibilities scream at us that the vale is uninhabitable. Bones and a miasma of bacteria that causes decay, rotting meat, acid. It offends the subconscious mind as a place emblematic of nothing but death. Yet, to the utter surprise of researchers, the Rotten Vale is home to a thriving ecosystem. from small monsters like Gyros to larger, more dangerous creatures like the Tigrex, Odogaron, and Radobon. This place is not a shrine to death, but rather a monument to the tenacity of life. It is a testament to life's ability to thrive. Perhaps a little different than we would expect, but no less worthy of the awe and childlike wonderment that all of nature instills in us as a species. Wild and untamed, perhaps, but vibrant and beautiful in a way that we cannot quite quantify. Effluvium, however, is a living organism, and like all life, is limited by the availability of resources, bound to the rhythms of bottom-up population regulation. When food, that is to say corpses, is plentiful, the effluvium population booms and decay increases. However, when there is less rot to consume, the effluvium instead cannibalizes itself, culling the population. This seems on the surface like a very dangerous cycle that could throw the rotten Vale into disarray if the balance is not maintained. We have not, however, ever observed this balance being lost due to the rotten Vale's most fascinating inhabitant. Elder dragons are inherently creatures that instill fear. They defy physics, biology, even logic. Teostra consumes sulfur and then produces floating clouds of gunpowder which can subsequently detonate. Namael can produce more water than its body mass and flash boil that water to create a steam explosion. Sideus can cause earthquakes when it slams its horns to file them down. These are creatures that make us question whether we understand the nature of reality at all, or whether these creatures transcend the laws of reality. The Rotten Vale, too, is home to an elder dragon. In the Wyverian tongue, its name translates to corpse dragon, a name both fitting and misleading. The Vaal Hazak. The Vaal Hazak is a large dragon that has a fascinating symbiosis with the effluvium of the Vale. Contrary to early beliefs, Vaal Hazak does not create effluvium, but rather cultivates it, much like a farmer would cultivate a crop. The Vaal Hazak covers its body in rotting meat, wearing it like a cloak, which gives rise to one of the titles bestowed upon the species by the guild, the Corpse Coat Dragon. With its rotting meat coat, the effluvial miasma as a cloak, its sheer size, and the facial structure of a deep-sea eel, it seems almost like something out of a horror movie. The Vaal Hazak, however, is, surprisingly, not aggressive. When the 5th Fleet hunter that first encountered the Vaal Hazak found it, it was asleep in its den, buried under the pile of bones it uses as bedding. A strange creature awakening it while in the safety of its den naturally provoked the Vaal Hazak. However, all other Vaal Hazak recorded by the guild have remained passive unless attacked. These elder dragons, curiously, seem to not mind the presence of humans in their domain. It is possible that this is because the Vaal Hazak evolved in a place so alien to humans that it has no threat response. Or perhaps it is because it is not particularly adapted for combat. Most elder dragons possess some elemental power: fire, ice, water, thunder, or the mysterious and barely understood dragon element, and many elder dragons can harness more than one. The Vaal Hazak, however, lacks any elemental abilities. In addition, it is notably physically weaker than many other elders. However, when forced to engage a threat, the Vaal Hazak will often fight with tactical supremacy rather than elemental supremacy. The Vaal Hazak has been witnessed pouncing to knock foes into the lakes of acid that scatter the lower levels of the Vale, letting its home serve as a weapon. If truly pressed, the Vaal Hazak can exhale a concentrated beam of effluvium, much like a traditional dragon would breathe fire. This unique breath attack can inflict the crippling status of effluvial buildup, cutting the subject's maximum health capacity in half. Because of this, engaging with this Elder Dragon is ill-advised because it can be extremely dangerous and the Vaal Hazak does not seek combat, but also because the Vaal Hazak carries out a vital task in the Rotten Vale. The Vaal Hazak, despite its immense size and superficially intimidating presence, is not a carnivore. It is not an herbivore. It is not an omnivore. The Vaal Hazak is an effluvivore. The Vaal Hazak's place in the ecosystem is one of balance, not disruption. Official sources say, on the ecology of Vaal Hazak, normally, effluvium levels are relatively stable within the middle layers of the Rotten Vale unless an unusually high number of corpses fall from the coral highlands in quick succession, causing a locally contained effluvium surge. The increased effluvium destabilizes the local area and causes oxygen deprivation through excessive decomposition. When deprived of oxygen, effluvium colonies will turn on themselves and begin consuming one another, leading to a sharp decrease in effluvium levels. Luckily, the Vaal Hazak assists in preventing the potentially calamitous event. When effluvium concentration is too high, Vaal Hazak draws excess effluvium into its body for consumption. Contrarily, in the event of low effluvium concentration, the meat adorning Vaal Hazak's body makes it a walking effluvium farm. Vaal Hazak's very existence is what holds the endlessly intriguing ecology of the Rotten Vale together. The Vaal Hazak was never evolved to be a monster that hunts and slays its prey to eat it. It is more akin to a filter feeder. Consequently, it exhibits a much more docile, conflict-avoidant temperament. Such behavior has been observed. In the effluvium-rich middle layers of the Vale where the Vaal Hazak feeds, if a hunter fires a torch pod on the ground to disperse the effluvium, the dragon will cry out in distress and retreat deeper into the Vale. Only when pursued does it become aggressive, likely perceiving the pursuit as a threat to its safety. To witness a Vaal Hazak feed is a rare and beautiful thing. It requires the dragon to be comfortable enough in a human's presence to feed. When it does occur, the Vaal Hazak rears back on its hind legs and draws the effluvium out of the nearby creatures, consuming the effluvium and instantaneously killing the creatures in the process. Nothing in the feeding is wasteful, however. Though the Vaal Hazak does not consume the corpses of the monsters slain, they decompose, feeding the Vale itself, and other monsters, such as the Odogaron, a facultative predator, may take the small monster corpses as food themselves. After feeding, the Vaal Hazak emits a cry that can only be described as a happy warble. One distinctive physiological feature of the Vaal Hazak is the unique double jaw. This larger bone structure is more properly called the pharyngeal jaw and is present on many species of deep-sea eel. A pharyngeal jaw is connected to the pharynx by muscles of the throat, and thus can extend as a way to grab prey. In the Vaal Hazak, the pharyngeal jaw is likely an evolutionary holdover as the dragon has no need to bite or grab other than for defensive purposes. This is quite fitting given the notable comparison between the Rotten Vale and the depths of the sea. The coral highlands high above the Vale evoke coral reefs. Far below the highlands is the Vale, therefore it is fitting that the resident Elder Dragon has elements of deep-sea creatures in its anatomy. We can look at concept work to see what this fascinating dragon looks like in its most natural state, with the effluvial cloak removed and the rotten meat stripped away. The wing membranes are considerably smaller than they appear, which may indicate a higher energy requirement for flight, which is evidenced by almost no instances of flight being witnessed in the species other than when a hunter is on its back. When a hunter performs a mounting attack, the Vaal Hazak will fly, perhaps willing to expend the extra energy to get the foe off its back. Interestingly, the large yellow spots are not true eyes in the most common biological sense. Rather, they serve a very interesting biological purpose. They are bioenergy sensors. They can detect the life energy of the creatures around it. In the darkness of the Vale, this is a boon to the Vaal Hazak as the Vale is a naturally dark place. The smaller red eyes are the dragon's true eyes. Vaal Hazak's comfort with human presence is rare in Elder Dragon behavior, only commonly observed in a few species. There are myriad reasons why the Vaal Hazak is so comfortable with humans present, but the truth is, we may never know. In fact, Vaal Hazak is comfortable enough with human presence that it is content to put itself in a position of vulnerability by laying down when hunters are near, yawning and relaxing. When we discuss Vaal Hazak at its most comfortable, we must of course discuss its den. The Vaal Hazak lairs not in a cave full of plundered riches, but rather in a secluded location of the Rotten Vale that only it seems to have access to by traversing a lake of acid from the Delamador corpse deepest in the Vale. As small humans, hunters are able to work their way in, of course. Vaal Hazak's treasure is not gold or jewels, but rather the bones of those who have perished. Even in death, these lost lives continue to serve the world, providing safe bedding for the elder dragon that regulates the cycle of life and death. Perhaps to Vaal Hazak, this is treasure. Perhaps the memories of those who have died, their remains are its riches. And after all, what is really more important, the honoring of life or shiny rocks that we deem to have value for the purposes of commerce? The Vaal Hazak does have one turf war or territorial dispute that has been recorded, with Odegaard. In this turf war, the Vaal Hazak invariably wins. The armor that the Astera smithy can forge from pieces of the Vaal Hazak is rather curious. The female variation of the armor evokes mourning, a widow's gown which she wears to her partner's funeral. This ties into one half of the cycle of life and death. The variant of Vaal Hazak known as Black Veil Vaal Hazak, however, handles the other half of the cycle. In its resemblance of a wedding dress, it evokes imagery of the start of a new life, marriage, the beginning of a family. The male armor evokes more sinister imagery, death knights, warlords, intimidation, violence. It seems that the male armor is meant to represent how this elder dragon is seen, while the female represents what the Vaal Hazak truly is. Humanity's perception of the Vaal Hazak is a bringer of death and decay, while its actual ecological role is balance, the cycle of life and death. The existence of the Rotten Vale and Vaal Hazak is a sharp reminder to humans that we have a limited understanding of life. We operate on a human-centric perspective, but life is not defined by humanity. Life is life. It is strange, beautiful, scary, regal, noble. But ultimately, it is life. What right do we as humans have to judge the shape that life takes? Whether that life is a majestic creature like Keating or a surprisingly docile elder dragon that drapes its body in rotting meat, it is not our place to judge life. Just because something is different or strange or grotesque or seems impossible does not mean that it is not worthy of life, respect, and love, and it certainly does not mean that it's evil. There may be no better example of that in our wide, wide world than Vaal Hazak. Thank you so much for watching. This video started out as little more than just a few clips I was gathering for someone on Reddit who tutors someone that loves dragons and asked the Monster Hunter community for suggestions of cool dragons. The more I worked on this, the more I realized that this could be a fantastic nature documentary style video to share with everyone. My hope is that this borderline David Attenborough video has helped you to see Vaal Hazak the way I do. Not as a demon or beast, but as a majestic and noble creature. What do you think of the Vale, and my personal favorite elder dragon Vaal Hazak? I'd love to hear it in the comments, and as always, I reply to every single comment. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments. It does help me out, as does liking and subscribing. If you want to see a video love letter to Monster Hunter Rise, click here. Or click here for a video on another deep sea creature, the Firaxa from Star Wars. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.